limestone cafe.
مرحبا لورا في البروجرام Maltese DownUnder. في التقسيم اللي يمس سر نلتقوا مع Phillip Doggett-Williams, artist وسكولتور.
I think I had inclinations to be an artist from a very young age. I didn't really take up art until my later years in high school. I was always interested in, finding an avenue for my, deeper philosophical questions. That I grew up as a, classic Catholic family.
Yeah.
And all those deep questions that you're confronted with that were confusing and challenging from a very early age. And I think that's really ultimately what influenced me. And I'm very much interested in grand narratives in my work. So,
In fact, what inspires you in your the three different artworks that you have? What inspires you?
Well, the mediums that I work with predominantly is lithography, which is fundamentally it's a drawing process. Sculpture and painting. So they're my three areas. I'm very much driven by my concerns for the environment, very much driven by my love of the landscape, influenced by my mother from an early age. She was always sewing, very creative. My father was very politically active. He was a union secretary on the waterfront for 40 years, sponsored many Maltese family to family Australia. A founding member of the Good Neighbour Council. So I always had that sense of sort of social duty, and so that's really what drives my work.
When you've got an inspiration for a piece of art, how do you translate that into one of the art forms that you have, either lithography, as a painting, or as a sculpture?
Quite often it will start as a quick sketch, quite often, so I get the idea, or it'll start as words, and then I throw drawings around, and then they get refined in lithographs, and then quite often they'll translate directly into the sculpture works. Ultimately, you have to. I've learnt to really have a strong command of my craft. And I think it's a combination of craft and ideas.
You showed us before how you transferred one of your lithographs onto stone. What's the process involved in that?
Lithography is sort of like water grease resist method. You're drawing on Bavarian limestone. All the stones, the lithographic stones, come from one quarry in Bavaria. It's a drawing process, and if you look at it under a microscope, there's all these little pyramids of limestone, and when you draw on it with your crayon, the crayon sits on the tips of those limestones, so a whole lot of little dots. And then it's a process of there's a bit of a chemical process that goes on. It's quite a long apprenticeship to describe it in a minute.
So you actually live in Geelong.
Yes.
You just opened the studio in Sunshine.
Yeah.
Do you find that living in Geelong comes into as well, sort of, it reflects into your work as well?
Well, we moved from St Kilda to Geelong.
Oh, that's a big difference.
I grew up in Essendon. When my parents first arrived in '49, we settled in West Melbourne. Actually, I'm very much a Melbourne boy. When we had children, 20 years ago, we moved to Geelong, and I've always had a very long association to the Otways. So I've been painting the Otways for close to 40 years, and Geelong was an opportunity for us to buy somewhere that wasn't as expensive as St Kilda 20 years ago, and it was sort of halfway point to the Otways. So our local beaches, Torquay or Point Addis, the really extraordinary places, very strongly influence my work, particularly the landscape work. I spent 5 years, more recently, working up around Teddy's Lookout, back of Lawn, and, the Otways, Polo Bay, up in the hills. That's where I love to be.
What about Sagra? You're also the curator at Sagra. Tell us more about Sagra and your involvement there.
I was invited to run Sagra about 3.5 years ago now. It was a client who had bought one of my sculptures, and originally started working there, running it full time. More recently, I've turned it into an artist-run space, so that's it's one of the places where I sort of curate exhibitions. It's a really beautiful venue, and it's a great opportunity for artists within my network to show work.
Now, your work can be seen in quite a few collections here in Australia as well as Malta.
That's right.
You know, looking back at your works and seeing these works that are, you know, out in the public, what does it mean to you seeing your work out there? Because I think it would be quite hard also to let go of an art piece that you've been working on for a while.
I don't really find it hard to let go.
You don't? They're not your babies?
Well, they never really let you go. They're a part of you. They're part of you spiritually, I think.
Yeah.
I think that it's important for me to communicate. That's a really significant aspect of why I produce the work. You know, so my work is out there to be read and to be felt and to be experienced. So I'm happy to see it out there in the world. In many respects, I don't really think too much about what impact. I have this mantra where I say, engage the process, don't anticipate the end result. So really, you know, what's most important to me is the character of what you have to say. You know, not how it reflects on yourself, but really what the sort of communication between me and the viewer might be, and how it might make them think and feel.
We mentioned how you've got 3 main mediums that you use. Which excites you more?
I think that, look, I love lithography. That's really immediate to me. And my heroes were Goya and Daumier, and I love the sort of political and the grand narratives that they work with. And so that's really, I love that graphic quality. But really, in the end, what I love more is the idea behind the work. And it doesn't matter what medium that I'm working in. You know, they're all challenging. And when I'm painting, I usually have 2 easels. One to deal with my psychological well-being and, you know, how I feel, and the other one to, you know, where I'm in control of the craft. So I work on sort of, you know, 2 modes, and painting can be very challenging. Probably painting's the most challenging. Sculpture and printmaking, in many respects, are much more immediate.
You also teach
Yes,
at a tertiary level
Yep.
as well. What legacy would you like to pass on to your students?
The most important thing that you can give students is a sense of confidence and an opportunity to express what they think and feel. And if I was to leave them any legacy, it would be to believe in themselves and to you know, make a difference in the world, and to take control of their own lives and make their way in the world and be entrepreneurial and to enjoy their lives.
Yeah.